Hi, guys. Again, sorry we didn't have class. Sometimes that just happens, but it's okay. We can watch this, or you guys can watch this and get caught up to speed. So first things first, go to our science homepage, and then you will click on modules. And then at the top will be this week's module. Normally I send you guys the link to the assignment in the chat, but you guys will have to go to modules and then look under Thursday, Friday. Under our Zoom day, we have signs of a chemical reaction assignment. And then you go ahead and give it a click. It will bring you to this page. And you guys will have a button that says make a copy. When you click make a copy, you will have something like this. So this assignment will say signs of a chemical reaction assignment, where earlier in this week we just talked about how you write out chemical reactions. So this assignment's just a bit different than what we've been doing. So the first part of this assignment is matching. So I will be going through the signs of chemical reactions, or the indicator of chemical reactions, and that's going to be all these in this first column. And this is just a matching exercise. So we're going to have to match the indicators to their definitions. And then after we get through the first part, your guys's do on your own work is watching 2 Edpuzzle videos. And the Edpuzzle videos links are right up at the top. So you can click these links. I can zoom in, make it a little bit easier to see. You can click these links and then hop on over to the Edpuzzles. And as you follow through the Edpuzzles, remember you have to mark your answers on the worksheet. So for example, do chemical reactions take place in your body? Of course they do. So you can either change your text color, bold it, or highlight it. If those options don't seem to be working for you, because sometimes I've had students say that they don't, also feel free to just like write your answer out to the side. So some way let me know what your answer is. So let's go ahead and get started. So last week we talked, or not last week, last time we talked about chemical reactions, and we talked about how chemical reactions look on paper, how we write them out. Remember that the chemicals that you start out with, or the elements and compounds that you start out with in a chemical reaction, we call those the reactants. So our reactants get together, they react, they bond, they go through some sort of change, and then after the chemical reaction, we end up with our products. So now we're going to talk about some signs of chemical reactions, or things to look for that'll tell you like, hey, yeah, that was a chemical reaction. The first sign of a chemical reaction that we're going to talk about is the production of a gas. And sometimes gases are colorless or hard to see, colorless, odorless. That's why they can be so dangerous. But generally, for something to become a gas, it has to be a liquid first. So as it's changing from a liquid into a gas, it'll form bubbles. So when you think of gas forming, think of bubbles. This picture here is a baking soda and vinegar volcano. You might have done this experiment in grade school, but when you mix baking soda and vinegar, they react and form a gas and bubble. So it's red only because we added food coloring, or someone added food coloring. Another sign of a chemical reaction is if you mix things together and they get chunky or cloudy. So they form something solid when you mix it together. So it's going to be 2 liquids, mix them together, and it forms something on the inside. This reaction here is silver nitrate and hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is actually the acid in your stomach, and then silver nitrate is just something different. But when these two things are put together, they form cloudy, chunky things. A real-life example of a solid that forms in your body that shouldn't is kidney stones. So kidney stones in your body is a chemical reaction gone wrong. So you may have experienced kidney stones yourself, or maybe have a family member that has had to deal with kidney stones. It is not very pleasant. So when you mix two things together and they get cloudy or chunky, they're forming a solid, and a fancy word for to form a solid is precipitate. Another way you can tell that a chemical reaction has actually occurred is if light is produced. So I'm pretty sure we've all played with glow sticks before. Glow sticks, you have to crack them, and when you crack a glow stick, you're actually breaking a container, a little barrier or bubble on the inside, so that the chemicals can mix together. And then when those chemicals mix together, they release energy in the form of light. So glow sticks, example of a chemical reaction. Next, anytime you have a change in temperature, when temperature changes, it generally means you gain or lost energy, which is going to indicate a chemical reaction. So we can either give off heat so we can produce heat. So when you think about a reaction producing heat, I want you to think about fires. Fires are combustion. So, standing around fire, you can feel, if you're standing around a campfire, you can feel the heat coming off of it. So that is producing heat. And when something is producing heat, the reaction is said to be exothermic. So we have that first part of that word says exo, and then we have that second part of the word that says thermic. So it's making heat like go on the outside. Exo means to exit. So the opposite is absorbing heat. So endothermic would be heat going into it. So exothermic, producing heat, is leaving. Endothermic, absorbing the heat, it's going in. It's going endo it. So any change in temperature will indicate a chemical reaction. The next way you can tell that something has gone through a chemical reaction is if we have a color change. But it has to be a non-additive color change. So what that means is like if you mix something that is blue with something that is yellow and it turns green, that's not a color change. Or if you're just like mixing paint together, that's not a chemical reaction. But if you have like two clear liquids and you put them together and then they change a different color altogether, then that is a chemical reaction. So I have this fun little video to share with you. Cabbage juice is a pH indicator, which means it will tell you whether something is an acid or a base. So adding cabbage juice to different liquids found in your kitchen, such as lemon juice or lime juice, those being acidic, or versus like bleach being very basic, adding that cabbage juice to each of them will cause a different color. All right, so that same cabbage juice in different liquids cause different colors. So color change equals chemical reaction. Another way you can tell that something has had a chemical reaction is if you have a change in odor, so a change in the way it smells. When things decompose, when they break down, they generally go through a chemical reaction, and sadly, sometimes when things decompose, they smell pretty bad. But a change in smell does not always have to be bad, but a change in smell does always indicate a chemical reaction. So think about any baked goods. Like if you're baking cookies, when you're mixing your ingredients together, you can't really smell the dough, but you put them in the oven and you cook them and you can smell the cookies. So change in odor can be good or bad, but both indicate that some sort of chemical reaction has taken place. And the last indicator or sign of a chemical reaction that we're going to talk about, or that I have in my presentation, is a change in reactivity. So that means it changes in how reactive the element or compound or material that you're dealing with. So an example of such are matches. So after a match is lit, you can't light it again. It's never going to react in the same way. Another example of something that changes in reactivity are glow sticks. After you use a glow stick and it stops glowing, it's not going to react again. So because all the reaction has already been used up, you can say, yes, a chemical reaction has occurred. So on your worksheet, we can work through the first page together, and then watching the Edpuzzles and doing the last few pages will be kind of like asynchronous work. All right, so we have each of the signs of a chemical reaction on the left side, and then we have some sort of definition or description on the right side. So already done for you guys. The first one says production of a gas. It looks like production of a gas matches with H. It says bubbles forming is an indicator of this. So anytime a gas is formed, I want you to think about bubbles, because as the liquid is changing into a gas, it gets stuck and becomes bubbles before it's completely a gas. Next, we have production of a solid. So we had that word precipitate. So the sign of a chemical reaction that is producing a solid is like when you mix two liquids together and then they become chunky, maybe when they become cloudy. So the option that I see here has the words precipitate and also cloudy would be F. Next, we have production of a light. So when talking about chemical reactions making light, we talked about glow sticks, we talked about glowing, energy being released. So the option that talks about those is B. Next, we have absorbing heat and producing heat. So I don't know if you guys remember when we were talking about things that produce heat. Fire produces heat, explosions or combustions produce heat, and it's going to be heat leaving the reaction, so it's exothermic. So the option I see that talks about fires and exothermic reactions is going to be option A. So if producing heat is exothermic reactions, the opposite is going to be absorbing heat, bringing it in, and that's going to be bringing it in, so endothermic reactions. It looks like this one's going to be C. Then we have a color change, and the last options that we have are D, E, and G, because H was used already, as in the production of a gas up here. So if you ask me, a change in color sounds like when you combine something and get a different color. Two more left, two more options. We have change in odor and change in reactivity. So change in odor, that's going to be changing to the way something smells, so that's going to be E. And then the last one has got to be our last option because it was matching. So changing reactivity's got to be G. It says substances can, or a substance can no longer react the way it once could. So if a substance can no longer react the way it once could, that's a change in reactivity. So the next thing you have to do is watch Edpuzzle videos. And the link to those Edpuzzle videos are right up at the top. So if you click on it, should bring up the video for you. And then as you play it and go through the Edpuzzle, each one of the question stops are going to be on your worksheet. So question stop, do chemical reactions take place in your body? Of course they do. And then on your worksheet, you'd make sure to mark your answer. So do chemical reactions take place in your body? Yes, absolutely they do. Alrighty, so there's one Edpuzzle and two Edpuzzles. So two Edpuzzles total to follow along and put your answers on the worksheet. If you have any questions or need any help, I'll be around on Monday on a synchronous day or any day next week after school. So just let me know. But thank you for watching this lecture and doing your assignment. Have a good day.